Hey there, welcome back. If you're new to my channel, my name is Katie and this is Louisiana Cooking and Living. And we are excited today because we have been in the bread baking mood. That's the word, the bread baking mood. If you didn't check my video out last week, I made the viral butter croissant Dutch oven bread. It is so yummy, so flaky, so buttery, so good. Crispy on the outside, so yummy. You should check that out. I will leave that video linked above. And today we are making some amazing roasted garlic. You can see the garlic in here. Roasted garlic, rosemary sea salt or flaky salt, focaccia bread. If you want to check this out, follow along in this video and we will make this together and then we will try it at the end of the video together. So we're gonna let this cool off while we get back to making this bread. I will take you back to last night where we started. This is a 24-hour process. Very easy to follow. It just takes some time. Think about it the day before. Get your bread made, your dough, put it in the fridge, and then forget about it till the next day. Pull it out and make your focaccia. So let's get busy making this dough. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our dough. This is the night before. This does sit in the refrigerator for 12 to 24 hours before you actually bake this recipe. So we are starting this the night before. And I will leave the original recipe linked in the description box. This is from Becky at Acre Homestead, this focaccia bread recipe. And we are going to be doing a roasted garlic, rosemary flaky sea salt version of this. So what we need is 1.5 cups of warm water in our bowl. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get our bread dough going. This does start 12 to 24 hours in advance, so this is the night before. And we're gonna put 2 cups of warm water in our bowl. And we're gonna add 2 teaspoons of yeast, and we're gonna let these two sit for about 5 minutes. If I can get my yeast open, 2 teaspoons. I made this recipe a few weeks ago and I thought that it was so good that I wanted to share it with y'all. And it really inspired me to go ahead and do it because last week I did the viral croissant Dutch oven bread. And I can leave that link up here in the cards for you guys if you want to see that recipe. It was put out a week before this video is coming out, so if you want to see that. We're going to let this sit for about 5 minutes and we'll be back to add the rest of our ingredients. All right, you can see we're nice and bubbly in here, so we're going to go ahead and add the rest of our ingredients. We need 1.5 teaspoons of salt. This original recipe came from Becky at Acre Homestead, and I will leave her recipe linked in the description box if you want to check out the original. We are going to do something a little different to it. We're going to do 1 tablespoon of EVOO real quick. We're going to make this a roasted garlic, rosemary, flaky salt focaccia bread. And now we're going to add 4 cups of flour. I'm going to fluff my flour before I measure. All right, our 4 cups of flour. And I'm just going to use my Danish dough whisk here to whisk this all together. We don't need to use a hand mixer because we're not going to need this. We're going to do stretch and folds. We're going to do 4 sets of stretch and folds with this bread. Every 30 minutes, we will do a stretch and fold. And you want your dough to be a little sticky. So she says if it's not on the sticky side, we need to add a little bit of water to it. So we'll see how this comes together. We are a little bit sticky here. So we're going to let this sit for about 30 minutes. We're going to cover it, let it sit for about 30 minutes, and then we'll do our first stretch and fold. So we'll be back in about 30 minutes. I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap. So we'll be back. All right, so our dough's been sitting for 30 minutes here. We're going to do our first set of stretch and folds, which you're just going to pick it up and fold it over. And right now it's just a gloopy mess, but you'll kind of see how the structure begins to form. We'll just pick one up and pull it over. Rotate our bowl a little bit, pick it up, pull it over. rotate, and actually I meant to wet my fingers. If you wet your fingers, you don't get this sticky. So we're going to pick it up and pull it over. Pick it up, pull it over. You can see how a ball is actually starting to form. So we're going to do this. This will sit for 30 minutes again, and we'll do it again. And this will be set number 1. And we're going to do this 4 total times. All right. So I'm going to cover this back. And we're going to come back to this in 30 minutes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wet my hands this time. Fingers wet. We're going to go ahead and do our stretch and folds. You can see how this is already doubling. Maybe not quite doubling, but it's already proofing. So we're going to go ahead and do our stretch and folds. So this is set number 2. It's less sticky and shaggy. It's coming into a more uniform ball. So we're going to go ahead and get this done, and we'll be back for our next set of stretch and folds after 30 minutes. All right, this is our last set of stretch and folds. Let me wet my hands. We're going to pull and stretch. And what I've been doing is pulling it and stretching it until it becomes kind of tough to pull. The gluten starts getting pretty tight, it's not relaxed, and it doesn't want to stretch with me. And that's how many times I kind of judge to stretch and fold. So it's starting to get a little tight. Maybe 1 or 2 more. It's not stretching as easily. Yeah, see, that's it. So I'm going to kind of form this into a ball. I'm going to get some olive oil because I don't want this to dry out. I'm going to drizzle that over the top. And you definitely want to use olive oil for this recipe because that's part of the beauty of a focaccia bread is the oil. So you use a good olive oil for this recipe. Make sure it's completely covered so it doesn't stick to anything or dry out. All right, I'm going to cover this with my plastic wrap, and we're going to put this in the fridge for 12 to 24 hours, and we'll come back to make some yummy focaccia. We are putting this in the fridge if I didn't say that. So I'm home from church, and I'm going to go ahead and get to the next step of our focaccia bread going, because this is going to have to rise again for about 2 to 4 hours on the counter. And so I want to go ahead and get this going before I change my clothes and do all those things you do when you get home from church. So in the bottom of my 13 by 9 pan here, I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. This is an extra virgin olive oil. One of the characteristics of the focaccia bread is the nice crunchy crispiness of the bread from all the olive oil used. So don't shy from the olive oil. We are going to do one more set of stretch and folds real quick on our bread. I'm going to punch it down. Let me get my hand wet real quick to not allow this to stick to me. All right, one more set of stretch and folds. Our refrigerator is good and cold, and this still was able to rise that much. All right, we're going to place this in our pan, and I'm just going to kind of gently ease it out. It's not really going to because I've been messing with it, but we're just going to ease it out as much as we can for now. All right, this is what we're going to do for now. Let me move this out of the way, and I'm going to wash my greasy hands. All right, we're going to go ahead and drizzle a little bit more olive oil on this. just so it doesn't dry out. I'm going to go ahead and cover it again with my plastic wrap. And I have my oven on 250 right now because we're going to roast our garlic while this is rising. So I'm going to set this over on my stove top, not by the vent that's got the 250-degree temperature coming out, but just over there because it's going to be warmer in that area. So we're going to set this over on the stove top, and then we're going to get our garlic ready. All right, to get our garlic ready for roasting in the oven, I have 3 heads of garlic here, and all I'm going to do is cut the top maybe quarter off of the head so that you expose all your cloves down in there. Sometimes when I lose a few of these, I just snip that off and try to put the puzzle back together. So I have 3 heads of garlic. And what I'm going to do is move my cutting board out of the way. I have 3 pieces of foil here, so I can spread these out. And what I'm going to do is just place 1 head in each section of my foil. Oh well. I'm going to drizzle a little bit of the olive oil in here. And then I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of salt on each one. And then we're going to just kind of cinch it up into a little package like that. And then you're going to need an oven-safe dish. I just have this little mini all-clad pan here, and I'm just going to set these all in here like this. And we're going to put these in the oven. We're going to let these roast for about an hour on 250. So let's go ahead and get these in the oven. All right, so those are going to be roasting. Our bread dough is on the stove top here. Hopefully we'll get a good rise out of that. Hopefully it doesn't take the whole 4 hours. I don't think so because it's in a warm spot. So, but you're going to think or plan for 2 to 4 hours for it to rise completely. You want to fill out that pan. We are going to be kind of using our fingers to dimple that dough, and we'll spread it out more, but you want it to puff up pretty nicely. So we're going to be back in a couple of hours when it's time to get this bread in the oven. So yummy. Can't wait. So it's time. It's time to squeeze out our roasted garlic and to prepare our focaccia for going in the oven. So the garlic, what we're going to do is just take them. You can see how nice and brown they have become. Brings out the sweetness. So yummy. And we're just going to squeeze all this out of the little paper skins. Be careful, it is extremely hot when it comes out of the oven. I will say I did turn my oven up to 300 just to kind of speed things along. So we'll get these all squeezed out. So now we're going to prepare our bread and we're going to do the dimpling on this. I'm seeing we have quite a bit of oil kind of around here, so I'm not going to put quite as much on top at the moment. We'll see how this pans out. Let me get something to kind of fork this around on here. Let's see. We'll just kind of dollop these around so that when we do our dimpling, it will kind of push it down into the dough. All right, I'm just going to dip my fingers in that oil and start dimpling this around, pushing those garlic cloves down in there. Kind of making sure we're filling up the pan. This is looking perfect. All right, next we are going to add our rosemary salt to the top. So let me rinse off my oily hands. All right, so I just have this flaky salt that is rosemary infused, and we're gonna sprinkle this on the top. You could certainly use, let's see, shallots, some fresh herbs, fresh rosemary. I've seen where people use vegetables and make like a pretty garden scene. You could certainly do something like that. And last time I made this, I did use fresh rosemary, but today I want to use this flaky salt because salt on top of focaccia bread is phenomenal also. So now we're going to put this in the oven on 400 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes. So let's get this in the oven so we can get to tasting. All right, guys. So here is our amazing bread. It is so yummy smelling. You can see all these cloves of garlic here in the front. It's got the amazing rosemary flaky salt on it. And we are going to give this bread a try. All right, let's go ahead and slice up a hunk of this to try. Look at the texture on that. So soft, but yet crunchy on the outside here. Little crunchy bits from the oil. All the yummy roasted garlic and that rosemary flaky salt. Let's give this a try. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it in half. I didn't need that big old piece. Look at that. All the nooks and crannies, the crispy crunchy at the bottom here. So good, so excited. I had a big old garlic clove right there. That salt on the top. That is so good, y'all. Another little crispy piece off the bottom. Well, I hope you give this recipe a try and follow along with us. If you haven't already subscribed, I'll put my little subscribe button here, my logo. You can touch that and subscribe very easily. And I will leave some other videos posted over here on this side that you can check out. Also, if you want to check out that previous butter croissant flaky Dutch oven bread, I'll leave that in the description box. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.